If you're taking the ACT soon, then you're probably wondering, how hard is the math section? Well, it's hard to say. Okay, that was not funny at all. The ACT math problems range from pretty easy to the hardest test you've ever taken in your life. So in this video, I'm going to go over all 5 levels of difficulty that you can expect to see on the ACT math section. So why don't we start with level 1? Because, like, it comes first. So for this problem, we have a function f, and it's defined by the equation f of x equals x squared minus 3. Now this question isn't just asking us to find f of 2, it's asking us to find f of 2 plus 4. But just don't be scared about that, because that literally just means we find f of 2, and then we just add 4 to it. So here's our function, and you'll see that when we have f of 2, we are replacing x with 2. So in the right side of our function, we're going to have to do the same thing. So to find f of 2, I'm just going to take this x and replace it with 2. And now we just need to simplify this down. So 2 squared, that's 2 times 2, which is 4. And 4 minus 3 is equal to 1. So f of 2 is equal to 1. But the question is asking for f of 2 plus 4. So let's just add 4 to it. 1 plus 4 is equal to 5, which means that 5 is our answer, and that's the letter A. So for this problem, we have some geometry stuff. It says that the lengths of corresponding sides of 2 similar right triangles are in the ratio 3 to 4. The hypotenuse of the smaller triangle is 18 centimeters long. How long is the hypotenuse of the larger triangle? So this is an example of one of those problems where they try to bombard you with as many math vocab terms as possible to make you wonder what it is you're even doing. But if we just try to focus down on what it's actually trying to say to us, then it's not as hard as it looks. The key word here is that these are similar right triangles. So similar triangles are basically the same shape of triangle, but they're just different sizes. Like one is a bigger version of the other. And it says that the sides are in the ratio 3 to 4. So whenever you see a ratio, then that means, for example, if a side of one of the triangles was 3 inches long, then the other one would be 4 inches long. Now, it does say that it's the hypotenuse of the smaller triangle, but that really doesn't matter because the hypotenuse is just the longest side, so who cares? But it does say that of the smaller triangle, it's 18 centimeters long. And we just need to find how long that side is for the larger triangle. So to solve this, we can just go ahead and use our ratio of 3 to 4. But we know that the 18 centimeters is the smaller one. So that's going to be the 3 of our ratio. So what is the length of the larger side if that's the 4 of our ratio? Well, the way I like to think about ratios is I think about how much it's being multiplied by. So to get from 3 to 18, we have to multiply by 6. And the way you can know that is just 18 divided by 3. That's 6. So if we're multiplying the small number of our ratio by 6, then if we multiply the large number of our ratio by 6, then what do we get? Well, 4 times 6 is 24, which means that the hypotenuse of our large triangle is 24 centimeters, or option C. And by the way, even if you had no clue how to do this, you still could have made this a 50-50 because it says the smaller one is 18. So the bigger one is not going to be 15 or 18. It's going to be like bigger than 18. For this problem, we need to find the y value of the solution to this system of equations. So normally the answer to a system of equations has both x and y, but they're nice enough to only make us find the y value. Now there's 2 main ways to solve a system of equations. There's substitution and there's elimination. Now elimination looks like it would be really annoying to try to do right now, but substitution is actually fairly simple, because we have x by itself already. Basically, because we're solving for y, we want one of these equations to just have y in it and not x, so that we can solve for y. But it says here that x is the same as 3y minus 4. So why don't we just replace x in our second equation with 3y minus 4, because it's the same thing. And if we do that, then we're going to completely get rid of x in this equation and we only have y. So I'm going to rewrite this second equation. But instead of x, I'm going to write 3y minus 4 because it's the same thing as x. And you'll see now that all we have in this equation is the letter y. We don't have the letter x. So now we just need to get y by itself. The first thing that I'm noticing we can do here is the distributive property because we have a number in front of parentheses. So we need to multiply the 5 out to the 3y and to the minus 4. So 5 times 3 is 15, and then the y stays. And then 5 times negative 4, well, 5 times 4 is 20, and we have one minus sign, so the minus sign stays. And then the rest of the equation is going to stay the same as it was before. Now, what else can we do to simplify? Well, we are trying to get y by itself, but we have two y's here. Now, because we have two y's, we can actually combine them. We can combine like terms. So don't forget about the minus sign. This is 15 minus 9. 15 minus 9 is 6. And then the y stays because we're combining like terms. And now we haven't touched this minus 20, so we're going to keep the minus 20. And we also haven't touched the minus 12, so that'll stay minus 12. So now we just need to get rid of this 6 and this minus 20 to get y by itself. I usually like to get rid of addition and subtraction first so that we don't have to deal with fractions. So I'm going to do the opposite of minus, which is plus, and add 20 to both sides. So these cancel out. On the left side, we just have 6y, and on the right side, we have negative 12 plus 20. That's the same thing as 20 minus 12, which is 8. And now we just have a one-step problem. Whenever you see a number and a letter next to each other, that means multiplication. So I'm going to do the opposite of multiplication, which is division. So the 6's cancel out. On the left side, we just have y. I'm running out of room here. And on the right side, we have 8 over 6. So that's actually a fraction that we can simplify. I can tell that because these are both even numbers, which means they can both be divided by 2. So 8 divided by 2 is 4, and 6 divided by 2 is 3. And 4 over 3 can't be simplified anymore, which means that our answer is y equals 4 over 3, or D. So for this one, we have two equations. We have 6x plus 3y equals 3, and 8x plus 2y equals 6. And we have the slope of the first one is m1, and the slope of the second one is m2. So based on that, we have to decide which of these equations is true. But I don't really see how we can find that out unless we know what the slopes of both of them are. So remember that to find the slope of an equation, we usually use slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. And in this form, m stands for the slope, and b stands for the y-intercept. But if we take a look at this first equation, you'll notice that it's not in slope-intercept form. So to be able to pull the slope from this equation, we need to put it in slope-intercept form. The key to slope-intercept form is that y is by itself. So in this equation here, we're going to try to get y by itself. First of all, this 6x is in the way, so I'm going to subtract it from both sides of the equation. So these cancel out. On the left side, we just have 3y, and on the right side, we have 3 minus 6x. One of them has a letter and one of them doesn't, so we can't actually combine those. It's just going to stay as 3 minus 6x. And now finally, we just need to get rid of this 3 being multiplied to y. So I'm going to do the opposite of multiplication, which is division. So the 3's cancel out. On the left side, we just have y, and on the right side, we have to divide the 3 from both parts. So 3 divided by 3 is 1, minus 6 divided by 3, which is 2. And then the x is just going to stay. And now our equation is in the slope-intercept form. I know it's a little weird because the b is before the m, but it doesn't matter. The slope is the number that's multiplied to x. In this case, that number is negative 2. Remember that the minus signs always stay with your slope. So we've determined that m1 is equal to negative 2. So let's go ahead and find out what m2 is now. Here's our second equation, and we're going to do it the same way. We're going to try to get y by itself. So I'm going to start by subtracting 8x from both sides. So these cancel out. On the left side, we just have 2y. Then on the right side, we have 6 minus 8x. Now this 2 is being multiplied to y, so I'm going to do the opposite of multiplication, which is division, and divide 2 on both sides. On the left side, we're just going to have y, and on the right side, we're going to divide the 2 out to both numbers. So 6 divided by 2 is 3, and 8 divided by 2 is 4, and the x is going to stay. So again, this is backwards, but it's still in slope-intercept form. The slope is the number in front of x, or m, and the number in front of x here is negative 4. So -4 is our slope. So there you go. We've determined that the first slope is -2 and the second slope is -4. But what do we do with that? Which of these equations is true? Well, let's just test out each equation and see if these numbers make it true. So A here is m1 is equal to m2. Well, -2 and -4 are not equal to each other. They're not the same number. So A is out. B says that 2 times m1 is equal to m2. Well, let's try that out. 2 times m1, which is -2, is equal to m2, which is -4. Well, 2 times 2 is 4, and 1 minus sign, so the minus sign stays. And you'll see that it actually is true. We get -4 on both sides, which means that the answer to this problem is B. For this problem, we need to find the inverse function of this function right here, the cube root of 4x minus 1. Well, an inverse function is basically just the same function, but where x and y are swapped. So to just make this easier on ourselves, I like to replace f of x with the letter y. Now to find the inverse function, we just need to swap x and y around. So instead of y, I'm going to put the letter x, and instead of x, I'm going to put the letter y. Now, I guess this is the inverse function, but remember that a function usually has y by itself, or f of x. So we basically just need to rearrange this equation around so that y is by itself, and then that will hopefully be one of our answer choices here. I just now noticed that this line here isn't connected, and it's driving me crazy, so let's just, okay, there we go, perfect. So let's try to get y by itself. The most obvious glaring thing that's making that annoying is this cube root that's covering everything. So the opposite of a cube root is cubing, putting something to the power of 3, not solving a Rubik's Cube, unfortunately. So remember, we can do whatever we want to both sides of the equation. So I'm going to cube both sides. So the left side is just going to be x cubed, and the right side is going to be everything except for this cube root, because the cube root and the power of 3 cancel out. So it's just going to be 4y minus 1. Now let's continue to get y by itself. I usually get rid of addition and subtraction first, so I'm going to add 1 to both sides. These are not like terms, so this is just going to stay as x cubed plus 1. And on the right side, these are going to cancel out, and we just have 4y. Now, because we're running out of room, I'm going to go ahead and take this and move it up here. And now we just need to get rid of this 4, and it's being multiplied, so I'm going to divide 4 on both sides. These 4's cancel out, so on the right side, we just have y. But on the left side, there's nothing that we can divide out here. We can't divide x cubed by 4, and we can't divide 1 by 4. So it's actually just going to stay like this. And if we go ahead and take a look at our answer choices, we'll see that x cubed plus 1 divided by 4 is answer choice C, which means that the answer to our problem is C. That is the inverse function. Now, those problems were really similar to ones that you'll see on the actual ACT exam. And that is the best way to practice, to keep doing example test problems. So if you want to see even more actual test problems explained, then this video is the one you'll want to watch next. If you have any questions about any of these problems, go ahead and leave a comment and I'll be sure to answer your question. Good luck on the ACT.